than to like completely generate them there yourself. Ice. This is a problem. Sorry about that. Something's going on with my computer.
What is Econ 242, by the way?
It meets right after this, and it's called Price Theory and Market Design. It's a joint grad-undergrad class that is sort of like a sister course for this, or a big sister course for this. And it's basically, I mean, roughly what happened last year is that I had an honors and a non-honors section of 201 last year, and the honors section became that course and got harder, and the regular section became this course and got easier.
Although the regular course is now called.
Exactly. Well, so you're getting a sense for how hard the class last year was.
And the problem sets from that course and the syllabus
are
on your website?
on the your chalk site. I have all the problem sets and solutions. For the price theory, no, those are on the chalk site for that course, okay. Which, and I will also post the problem sets and solutions on your course under the, once I get the solutions. For the ones that we don't have the solutions yet, it's not really worth it. But
yeah, I was just wondering where we find it.
Yeah, but the, can you guys access chalk courses that you aren't enrolled in, or no? Okay. Okay, so all the like slides and syllabus and stuff is on my website, and then actually I need to add the slides for next week's class.
I think we found out these courses are in problem sets from
Yeah.
the honors section as well as the regular section from last year to chalk.
Yeah, all those are, all the honors, everything from last year is already on your chalk site, but the solutions and problem sets from this year's 242 class are not yet on your website, but I can do that. What is going on?
Worth your while film reviews.
Oh, you, thank you. I hope the class is.
We just found the website. The link in your slideshow is missing an L at the end. Just what I was trying to get on.
On what slideshow?
The slides you have posted, your link to your website says HTML instead of HTML.
Yeah, HTML is a different format.
My computer wouldn't open it.
Oh, really?
I just add an L and it works.
Oh, worked?
If
Okay.
anyone else has that problem.
Okay. That's useful to know. Okay, so let me keep going through this. So the exams are going to go even further in that direction because the exams people found even more difficult. So the exams will all be sort of in the same relationship to your problem sets that the problem sets were to the previous problem sets. So the exams are really going to test that you did a good job and understood the solutions to the problem sets rather than forcing you to come up on the spot with new economic analysis, because I think people found that really hard last year. So I think this is going to be a very challenging class, hopefully not quite as challenging as last year, and gets you engaged without putting you under quite as much pressure as I think some people felt last year. Okay. So I want to try to launch the class by showing you an example of how powerful I think economic analysis can be. And to do that, I want to talk about a chapter from a book that had a big influence on how I think. So I think that this assigned chapter is sort of economic analysis at its best. It takes something that's obviously conventional wisdom, which is that doctors should be licensed. It looks at it from an economic perspective, and it makes, I think, a very persuasive argument in the opposite direction, and in the process skillfully uses a bunch of the concepts that we're going to learn during this course. So my hope is that at the end of this course, you'll be closer to being able to generate the sort of analysis and argumentation about some other issue that Friedman did on this occupational licensure issue. Okay, so what is Friedman's basic argument in this piece? David Wang? David, yeah.
I think it's found that the restriction of occupations to those that were already licensed
Mm-hmm.
was ultimately retrogressive from economics, and it didn't
Yeah.
really make much economic sense because the supply of licensed professionals didn't meet the demand as well. And
Yeah.
mainly, I think he said that the licensing was for the protection of the public, but the pressure was typically coming from people within the industry themselves, and therefore it was only to promote their own interests.
Yeah, that's very good. So Friedman basically says that the main goal of licensure is to raise the wages of doctors by restricting the supply of doctors, and that this actually lowers the quality of medical care by reducing the amount of time that people get to spend with doctors because they don't have as much time for them, and that almost all the benefits that you could get from licensure could be achieved if you had instead certification, which is that doctors got certified by the government, but that you weren't legally prohibited from practicing if you were unlicensed. And so he therefore argues that medicine should be open to free practice, possibly with government licensure, because of the political manipulations that have occurred under the current system. Okay, so let's try to break that all down a little bit. So Friedman argues that by reducing the quantity of doctors, this benefits the current doctors who are already in the market. Is Lewis here? Yeah, Lewis. So why is that the case? Why, by reducing the number of doctors, is that beneficial to the current doctors?
Well, they can command a higher salary if there are less doctors available.
Yeah, there's more competition for those doctors, for the scarcer supply. You restrict the supply and the price goes up, right? And this harms those who want to enter the market but are kept out, as well as the people who are currently in the market consuming the product. And this basically creates a wedge between the willingness to pay for doctor services and the willingness of people who are on the margin to entering the industry, willingness to accept. And that gives an incentive for and a harm from licensure. Now, this is something that shows up in many areas of economics, not just in medical licensure, when various interest groups rally for tariffs or for subsidies. It's basically based on the same desire to restrict supply and raise prices. Okay, so if the standard story of why we have medical licensure were true, that this is to protect consumers from unscrupulous doctors, who should we expect, Jae-min, to be lobbying for the regulations?
The consumers, because they'd be the ones benefiting from the better doctors, the better security, but in reality it's the doctors' trade groups that are...
Exactly right. Yeah, so if this was really in the interest of consumers, you'd expect consumer groups to be in favor of it. And yet, in fact, that happens in many, many areas. So many regulations in the economy, you see businesses opposing and consumer groups defending, like product safety regulations, environmental protections, et cetera. And this is an area where there's almost no presence by consumers lobbying for more strict restrictions, and a lot from producers. So that's already a tip-off that something else is going on here than just simple consumer protection. That doesn't necessarily mean that the doctors all think that they're just trying to steal from the public. So they may have sort of convinced themselves that they're doing this in the public interest, but that's a very easy thing to convince yourself when it serves the interests of your productive group. One thing that you often see as a way of people convincing themselves that they're serving the public interest is that they develop this sort of idea in a profession that in order to be a valid member of this profession, you have to be really, really high quality. And that the thing that really matters is that we do the absolute best medicine that's possible. And by developing an ideology around that, people are able to persuade themselves that they should restrict entry in the interest of the public to make sure you achieve the highest level of technical efficiency without thinking about the actual economic trade-offs that are involved in the extra expense that carries with it. Okay. A fourth argument that Friedman makes is that the standard that one should be using to evaluate doctors, if you were really serving the public interest, is how competent they are, right? Like how good they are at the things that we need them to do. But David, again, what in fact does Friedman argue were the standards that are typically used in assessing doctors?
I don't actually remember what he did with doctors, but I think for some of his other arguments, he mentioned like with barbers and veterinarians.
Yeah.
Some of the standards were largely like for vets, there was like the non-communist clause.
Yeah.
And for barbers, it was like thousands of hours of sterilization training.
Yeah.
That was just were absolutely not critical to the performance of the professional.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, I think one classic example of this is that, I don't know if any of you guys are pre-med, but or have friends that are, but to be pre-med, you need to learn physics, you need to learn chemistry, you need to learn orgo, and you never once need to take classes on like small motor skills. And what do most surgeons, who are the highest paid of doctors, spend most of their time doing? Small motor skills. They don't spend a lot of time proving physics theorems, right? So it's a little bit strange that that's the standard for becoming a physician in this country, right? Another strange thing is, as David pointed out, that there's, screening criteria tend to be based on things like, are you a communist or not, which doesn't seem to have anything to do with your competence as a doctor. And that is another classic strategy that many sort of protectionist groups use, is to sort of hijack other ethical views we have, like, I don't like communists, therefore I support the doctors keeping communists out of the profession, even if that really has nothing to do with the service that I'm getting. And racial discrimination was often used in that way as well.